Hey guys, welcome back to Tough Love with Dr. John O'Connor. Today's podcast is all about going from ordinary to extraordinary. Welcome back, Manny. Let's get it going.
It's a pleasure. Let's go right in. How do we separate from being ordinary into extraordinary?
You know what? For me, I always thought it was about, pre-injury, what brought my podcast to go was reps. And what I realized when I really hit the rock bottom and had to kind of rebuild myself and rebuild my vision and evolve, it was consistency in the small things. And for me, in the injury management, the mindset, rebuilding myself, escaping, or getting away from fear, I realized that as I listened to people that I've never met, but I almost consider them mentors, it was about being consistent every single day, where some people are good 2 days a week. Some people are good 3 days a week. For me, I literally try to break it down to minutes, and it's an everyday thing. And I'll see people scoff at me and say, well, that's fun. A patient had said that to me. Well, that's fun. That's how you wake up. And I laughed and I said, it is, because I know I'm setting myself up for success.
Right.
So I would definitely say that, there's so many times that when we're challenging ourselves, you want to say, hey, let's just be done. Let's quit. Let's go do something else.
Very easy to do.
Right. And, I don't know how many times table it. Let's get back to it later. And I'm dealing with my son right now. And, I had said, I look at my two kids and, I see my daughter super motivated. She's working. She's got the car thing. She shops. She's like a little young adult already. And I'm very impressed with her. She's just so far ahead. And then with him, I get it. I tell him every single day I'm pushing a Ray Lewis, motivational podcast, this and that. I'm like, you got to dig in. And I had said, I was like, with the innovation of this podcast and my fitness journey and, part of it started rehab. And then now I'm kind of back to doc and I'm back to grinding, is I share with him my rituals or routines. Like, hey, I'm introducing more food, more calories. I want to get to that next fitness level. I want to get there safely. And, he'll push back, and he'll be like, maybe I'm done. Maybe this isn't for me. And that's a typical answer you get out of a 17, 18-year-old kid, especially, a young boy. I've always said in training for years, my greatest achievement was, or my transition was when I moved to girls sports. And I know I'm laughing now right now thinking about it, because my girls that I was with in training all the time, they literally were just different, and it made me so happy. And I could see why the great coaches like, the UConn coach and whatnot, they just bring it. And they're so dialed in, and not to say the boys aren't, not at all. That's not where I'm going with it. But,
Beast mode.
Yeah, just beast mode. And they bring it every day. They compete, and it's a normal thing for them, especially around here in the short conference for girls basketball. But I was, to land the plane, so to speak, on my son, I was like, Jay, listen, I know the competition's crazy there, but I always tell you, it's you versus you. They don't matter. It's not their times. It's how fast you get your time. It's
Right.
not their jump. It's how fast you get your jump. It's how well you swing the bat. It's how well you rep in the outfield. And if you notice you're not picking a ball up going this way, you have the best coaching staff at IMG in the world, in the United States. Ask them, hey, coach, can I get more reps? No coach there. I was there. We'll tell you no. And if you bring it like that, right, that commitment formula, and it should be a mathematical equation, success will find it, right, because you've done the work. And when preparation meets it and that opportunity shows, you're going to get where you want to go.
Right. And as you know, Doc, success comes not overnight. It's a step-by-step process, right? So what happens behind closed doors is usually what sets people up for success on the field, in life, on the court, in the classroom. So what advice would you give your listeners as to how fast can you get to become extraordinary? Is it a step-by-step process? Do you wake up and get there? What would you say to your listeners?
It's a great question. You got to celebrate, success is a journey, right? And I don't care whether it's first making the team, then breaking the starting lineup, then being all conference, or the best shooter on your team, or winning a spot. But you got to celebrate those. And then once you get there, it's like going upstairs.
Right.
And you watch, a puppy go up the stairs, or a small child, they get to one, they look back, and they're so excited to get to the next one, and they're scared. But, in sports, the object is to get to the top of the, top of the stairs, top of the mountain, right? And so I've always told my athletes, I'm like, when I'm going through and I'm breaking them down, and even when I look at myself is, do the hard things first, right? If you can't dribble, we're going to work on that. If you can't shoot, we're going to work on that.
Master your craft.
And master your weaknesses, right?
Well
Master
said.
your weaknesses.
Yeah.
Because the biggest thing is, and I think this is something Ed Milet says, is feared things first, right? And it's so true. I was just talking to one of my kids that I think he was a 2010 National Player of the Year for Division II basketball, and he just got inducted into his high school Hall of Fame. And I was saying to him, I was like, I didn't realize it then because we were in the trenches, and even being a younger trainer, he was so well balanced. But looking back at it, the one part of his game that we worked on, and he was good, but it was a streaky part of his game in his shooting. If that was a little bit better, he's probably watching the NBA players that I had on the court who came and visited us, whether it was through AAU organizations and different funnels that I was attached to, he was there. And you don't realize until you're in it, and then you look back and, right, you say, all of us, Yankee fans or Giants fans, this and that, we're sideline coaches. We're you're coaching from the sidelines. It's easy when you're on the sideline or the second spot to make the calls, right? And when I was looking at that with him, wasn't, we weren't regretful or anything like that. We just said, wow, if you could take that shot, put that on that kid with those tools, because there's 5 tools. I would say 5 tools in basketball. And I'm sure it's all sports. They say that's that algorithm for greatness, right? But the reality is he did an amazing job. And any of these kids, guys, girls, whatever, but life, it's about saying, you know what? If we probably would have broke back in and I was where I am now as a coach trainer, I would have started with that weakest thing first and say, no, you can't come out of this. I know you can do this well. Because the first thing that we had with him, and he embraced it, but we went away from it, was he didn't think he was fast enough or athletic enough. And when he got to his college, he put so much time in the weight room, and he put so much time on working on his tenacity and how he approached that he made that feared thing his superpower.
Right.
Now, if looking back to say how would I have said constructive feedback for me, for his trainer, mentor, coach that was working on him, I should have said, hey, then, and the same thing we should do to ourselves is what can I do to elevate myself? And it should have been, hey, now we're going to break down that shot. And sometimes, what you realize is, and this is a life thing. If I know we said this when we were on the Rob Gill podcast, if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're probably in the wrong room. Right. You want to be around people. If you think you're the best one, there's always going to be something. Right. And if I probably would have did that again, I probably would have brought someone in to almost outsource me to work on that, to then give that person a better outcome.
Right.
Right. So
absolutely.
I think that's the approach. So I think circling back to it, you want to go from ordinary to extraordinary. It's have a plan. Every single day you're working at that plan. Every single day you're celebrating the wins, the losses. And it's funny. It's not a loss. What'd you learn? I can't do that. Okay. What do I have to do to get there? What can I look on the internet? Everything's a click away, right? How can I get better at that? And then when you accomplish that right there in that moment, now you start building confidence. And we always talk about, taking too many withdrawals and not enough deposits. With confidence, right? You have clarity.
Yeah.
Because now you're not that fear, the fear's the blinders.
Right.
Right. And you're afraid to, you're afraid to throw the ball. You're afraid to, it's a lefty on lefty, whatever it is, you're afraid to take the shot. You're afraid to go against the press. You can apply that to business. You're afraid to ask the boss for a raise. You're afraid to communicate with your coworker.
Yeah.
Once we get past that because of confidence, because you tried it, feared things first, now all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow. Because most times it's in your head. It didn't even really exist. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've had my share of people that I've interacted with, and God knows over the years, I've definitely evolved as a person, a communicator, especially as a leader. I realized during COVID, when we had kind of reset the business and, we opened up all these locations coming out of COVID or reopened, I realized I had to be a better communicator and had to be a better listener. So for me, if that was my little things that got me there, now when I walk into a room, and we have meetings coming this week and we're booked solid, I said, you know what the first thing I want to do? I want to greet, I want to show them the space, and then I just want to listen. And I absorb what they're saying. I want to process it. I want to show them that I'm thoroughly, into that. And then I want to respond. And we're know right there if it's for us or not. So I think anything, whether it's sports, business, academic, personal, we have to just, you celebrate the small things, work on the weaknesses, attack the weaknesses first. Anything that scares you, put it on top of your list.
Yeah.
Attack that first.
Yeah.
Get the fears off there today. You know, I had a conversation with a very dear patient to me and a very special human to you. And it was wonderful hearing her talk about her accomplishments and the little things. And it made my heart smile because we knew the journey that's going on. And we have a wedding coming up and all these exciting things. And everything was positive.
Yeah.
And it made me smile because I know her journey. And literally it was like her listening to this podcast right now and saying, do the little things.
Yep.
What bothers me? I was afraid of those. I'm not afraid of those anymore.
Small wins.
And, you know, and if there's a tweak, it's not devastating. Right after, a fitness session, get ready for that wedding
Came
dress
right
and
after a
big day,
workout.
get the recovery in and whatever it is, right? You apply it. And instead of looking at it as a fear or you keep, sweeping it under the carpet, go right at it. And then all of a sudden you look at it and you're like, now we're stockpiling that confidence. We're stockpiling those wins. And now we're going on a run.
Yeah.
And so I think for anybody, for me, that was a listening moment because when I sat down there, I think whether it's patient care, interacting with people, friends, family, coaching, I think it's so important that you got to like, hey, you know what? That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think when they hear that, they feel that. That's the connection.
Right. Absolutely.
And that makes him go like, wow, he really cared. He got excited. He got how many times someone say like, there was a coach that I had the privilege of working with years ago. I think her name was Coach Steph Gately. Absolutely powerful woman, right? I mean, probably one of the strongest charismatic coaching personalities, and I've been around some amazing ones. And she came down, and somebody knew her, and she came down to speak and present to a bunch of my young ladies, and they were young. They were 4th, 5th, 6th grade, maybe a couple 8th graders, and her ability to motivate them, her anecdotal stories, and the energy she put into the caring in her words. Every one of those little kids, and there were, I don't know, it wasn't a huge campus. There was 50. I'm going to say 35, 40 of them. And I got to, that was when I was deeply immersed with the training. I was doc training all Monmouth County.
Yeah.
I'm going to say 60, 65, maybe 65, 75% of those girls turned out to be outstanding players in their region.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt in my mind when you have that importance of being an influencer and going from ordinary to extraordinary, and she was extraordinary to those young ladies, that she motivated the bulk of that room so young to be like, I can do it. Let's go.
Motivated them for life.
Yeah, man.
And that basically rolls me into my next statement here. I feel as if a lot of people out there, they see what's in front of them, right? Whether it's watching sports or watching others be successful in life, in business, and what people don't see is what happens behind closed doors. So my next question going into this is, if you were to say the amount of effort or percentage put in to on the field, on the court, in life, and behind closed doors that build up to that extraordinary level, what number would you give your listeners?
Oh, I have to tell you that's everything, right? It's everybody wants to see the finished product, right? Everybody wants to see the 5-star restaurant and the steak. No one realizes what goes into the preparation and putting it on the table, right? And, I would say, like, for me, 20s, 30s, even early 40s, I worked so hard at my craft and, in the early mornings and both sides. I mean, clinical and there, and I always wanted to compete. And I don't know if I was articulating it was me versus me, but I think now in the older me looking back, it always was. And I would tell everybody the same thing, that if you're grinding at it, you're going at it, you need to understand one thing. When you're trying to get there, you have to understand the work that goes on. And I had a great coach in prep school, and he said the battles happen in practice. So that the great accomplishments, the victories on the field feels like cake.
Right.
And that's life, right? That's working hard and preparing for business. That's your meetings. That's, doing the recovery. You had aches and pains. You're making sure you're getting them down as small as possible. That's making sure you're eating, you're hydrating. That's making sure that you're setting up Monday on Friday. That makes sure that you're transitioning and turning an office over, or you're prepping anything.
Right.
That it's those little extras, those details, right? The greatest thing I could recommend to people is that when you really take a second and you think about the details and you break it down to the minute details, it is very hard not to be successful. But if you just think, and I think that's youth and immaturity, right? Like, a young athlete sees somebody and says, "Oh, I want to do that." Well, you didn't realize that they do an hour of tee work every day. They do an hour of soft toss every day. The little things. They do an hour of video every day. And they still are doing that and grinding, and they made it there. And they're working on different coaches and different ways and different mind psyches and how to stay in that zone. So I think, great question. I think the importance of preparation, and I just like to go to my man Sean Casey on that because, I think I literally have burnt that podcast into my son's head. And it's critical path. I mean, you have to be a student of that philosophy. If you really want to be good at something, there's going to be people that have, ungodly ability in anything. I don't care whether they're an attorney or a surgeonist or that. But at the end of the day, if you listen, because some people just say, "Oh, look at the result. Look how successful they are."
Yeah.
But you ask their peers around them, usually they say amazing things like, "Oh, they're so meticulous," or "They read all the time," or this and that. It doesn't go unnoticed.
No.
By the people that really are students of the game of
they know what
self-improvement.
goes on.
They know what goes in. And so that'd be my recommendation. I think that if you're really trying to get there, watch the great ones. Watch how they prepare.
Right.
You want to be a great nurse. You want to be a great chiropractor. You want to be a great surgeon, whatever it is, right? You want to be a great attorney, great father figure, mother figure, whatever.
Yeah.
You got to watch what other people are doing. Maybe you have to make it your version, but you got to make time for that.
Definitely.
And you know what? And when you do that work, let me tell you something. You got a happy soul. You're going to be in a spot where you're going to be like, hey, you know what?
Right.
I feel that. It feels good. And, that's what's contagious, right?
Yeah.
They say winning is contagious.
No,
but
absolutely.
You know what? Positive patterns, positive, just keep injecting that positive. And now we were talking about depositing it back into yourself.
Have to.
That's when you start seeing some really successful habits starting to form.
Right.
And that's when you grow to an exponential level.
That's what it's all about. And I want to circle back to when you were talking about people getting ready for the week, weekends coming, great. I know a lot of people right now say it, come Sunday night at a certain point, Sunday scaries, they say, going into a Monday for the week. So what would you say a Sunday scary would be, or how do you prep your week? I know me personally, the week starts on Sunday. Sunday is my Monday. And for those people that take a Sunday as, I got to get up on Monday for work, or I got to do this, do that, what advice can you give people to open up a little bit, to prep themselves to win the day, win the week, and get away from Sunday scaries?
So, great question. I have forever, and obviously it's borrowed, would always say Sunday fun day.
Right.
And then literally, I think, if my family's listening to this, they always knew that that was my holy plus holy day, meaning that by like 3 or 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, the latest, I wanted to be at home base, and I wanted to be going over like my purpose and what my vision was for the week, and get myself organized and set myself up. I mean, whether it was putting the coffee cup out or the food or whatever, because if I had to rush into Monday and stuff would happen, I know, almost 25 years now in business, it took me almost a quarter century to tell my staff, hey guys, no disrespect, if anything bad happens, unless obviously it's something that's really like you need to get to me, send me an email on Monday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to feel that on Sunday night when I'm sitting there, and I'm big on visualization. I want to see it first. I want to watch it happen in my mind. And then I want to figure out and reverse engineer how to create that.
Make it happen.
And, I have to tell you that that was one thing that I would tell every owner, young, entrepreneur, aspiring entrepreneur is Sunday, stay away from the phone. You see an email that comes in that you don't really want to put it away, literally zip through. That's why I like the idea. There's so many of these self-help guys that are like, hey, that person, or people, Sean, right? I don't want to say just guys. There's amazing men and women out there doing it. But, try to stay off the phone the first 30 minutes you're awake and the last 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And really reflect on what's going on. But, that end of the day, I don't know how many times, when there was just one center, I think when you're a hands-on practitioner like myself, I would then peek in and I'd look at these and then I'd be devastated. Now my sleep cycle's off. Now my brain's off. And instead of thinking about growth, Now I'm in that mindset of scarcity. I'm in this fear zone. I'm in, oh, what did I do?
Yeah.
And now when I go to sleep in my subconscious mind, there's nothing restful about that, right? And that would be my recommendation to any young entrepreneurs that we talk about, even with our coaching. It's like, hey, listen, I get it. We've all been there. We're all transferring here and robbing Peter to pay Paul to do this when you're a young business, and that's the hustle of it. But the reality is staying organized, right? Don't take off more than you can chew, but be aggressive. That scarcity mindset, you're never going to grow. You're never going to get to that. You're never going to be a star. You're never going to be the best person on that team if you don't take a chance, right? And so when we get to that point, I think it's so important. And that's what we were talking about earlier about celebrating those small wins because that's your streak, right? Most of us are done playing, sports in high school, some of us middle school. Only less than 1% get to make it to that highest level, college or beyond.
Yeah.
And I think that you have to really celebrate those little wins so that all of a sudden, when you document them like that, now you're looking at like if you're the coach or you're the GM of the business of Matt, the business of JOC.
Yeah.
Hey man, you know what? I put 15 things on my list today. I did all 15 things. Well, I see that I'm on a 15 game winning streak.
Let's make another list.
And we want to keep it
on
rolling.
To the next, yeah.
Right. So I think that's a big thing. I think that your rituals, routines are so important in that, and putting positive, putting a lot of positive influence into that is absolutely critical. I see it with my young guys around me, my social media team, they're growing. I wish them all the best with what they're doing. And, and I constantly give them advice and go over stuff with that. And I think it's so important to understand because I've always said as a young businessman, I loved having friends that were 10, 15, 20, 30 years older than me because for most part, they were inspirational. They weren't, like I would say, unfortunately, a lot of times it's your family, like, don't get hurt because they love you, right? They don't want to see you get hurt.
Right.
But there's nothing better than that person that says, you know what, Matt? You can do that.
Absolutely.
And, I was there when you were there. And, man, you got more energy than me. And then you say, well, what did I learn? Maybe take a second. Write that down.
Right.
Say that again. And then when you go out and you start reverse engineering and kind of recalculating what you're going to do, and you say, I got a little better this time. And that's how greatness happens. That's how you go from ordinary to extraordinary because you say, you know what? I was good at this. Now I'm really good. Now I'm approaching great. And then from great, you go to extraordinary. And then from there, this is it. And then to the moon. And then you want to give back.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's what I do with the coaching platform. And I told you when we were at our first event, maybe I'm not on the basketball court anymore. I felt like I was on the hardwoods. When we were down there, it was great to connect with people that I could see were like, they had the ability, they didn't have the confidence. Too many withdrawals, not enough deposit kind of mindset. And when we went at them and celebrated some of the stuff they were doing, I thought, I was like, hey, listen, I hear greatness here. We just got to get you organized.
Absolutely.
We got to get you out of this, get you into here, and reach out to us and let's see what we can do.
Definitely.
So, but yeah, I love that question. Hopefully, I gave you a strong answer. But to me, I'm a creature of routine.
Right.
And the last couple of weeks, we had amazing podcast interviews with the founder of Incrediware, as well as the iconic fitness recovery guy in Gary Reinl. And both of them not realizing, I think that, the Incrediware founder, he was amazing to say, like, they realized they're a disruptor in the pain industry. But, hearing Gary's story and then the book he wrote, they'll look back, many years after he passes and says something along the lines that, do you know a person that was an exercise physiology guy literally disproved the Rice theory?
Right.
Or, the Rice approach to rest, ice, compression, elevation with a device, not knowing they were doing it. And so it was, it was amazing to hear them and hearing the inspiration of them. It's like our core four. It's like, I want people to look back in a few years or, there and just be like, hey man, you know what? At first we thought it was something that was going to pass, but they've changed physical medicine. They change how occupational therapists, physical therapists, and chiropractors approach healthcare to the point where, getting people to avoid surgery or post-surgical issues where they haven't gotten better. I heard a patient today having a conversation with a neurosurgeon and very analytical thinker. And he had asked him, and asked a great question. He said, what's the probability of my revision? And, is it a high success or a high chance that could happen? And the neurosurgeon went right on and said, yeah, this is a high revision rate surgery. So immediately he was like panicking. He goes, I'm going to stay here. If I can play tennis all day and I got a little tingling and this and that. He goes, I'm thinking I'm going to stay in this space because you're telling me I'm going to have multiple surgeries and interruption where I can't do what I love.
Yeah.
The whole object of the surgery is to enjoy my life. If I got to put the brakes on my life, then why would I have the surgery if I'm doing it now?
Right.
So I think you can apply it to anything,
Yeah.
you know? So anyway, thank you for asking that great question.
Absolutely. And I think that's the biggest difference from becoming ordinary to extraordinary is one, rituals and routines, what we do behind closed doors, and motivation, right? And somebody always needs that extra push. It doesn't matter, even if you say you don't, there's always an instance during the week, during the day, where you feel you're not, one, giving it your all, or two, you feel as if what you're giving isn't good enough. So I also feel, as far as motivation goes, what would you tell your listeners right now, as opposed to if they feel like they need a boost behind them or a pick-me-up, how could they go about it?
So I immediately go to, I'm an alarm person. If you open my phone, it would be scary how many alarms go off.
I know.
So I try to set timers on the hour.
Yeah.
And you never know when there's going to be a patient coming in that's in miserable pain, somebody's unhappy because of pain, somebody's late, somebody's waiting. And so my alarm clock goes off at 8, 9, 10 throughout the day, and it goes off and music comes on and it says, bring your best. And so that I realize they deserve my best. I deserve my best. And when I see it, I smirk and I get a little smile in my head. Then I'm like, hey, you got this. So I might be in a wonky place at that moment. And then when I see that go off, you know, I believe his name is Brendan Burchard. It's a motivational speaker, and he's in the educational space for leadership, time management, coaching, et cetera. And he's a big timer guy. And I believe it was something that we always use in healthcare, like get up, don't sit too long, don't compress. Yeah. But he does it for mental clarity and acuity, like to stay sharp. And for me, I use it as a leadership thing that when I say bring your best, it's if I have somebody training there and that alarm goes off, I want to make sure to say, hey, you're doing a great job. And you're busy and you catch them like that, or hey, good job. Because it's so easy to get caught in that rut that you're a little hungry. You're starting to go into the woe is me mode. And now something come out that's a little bit more emotional and not from the heart. And then sometimes it's okay. I tell people, stage positivity. Some of the best coaches have staged eruptions on purpose. They get into the team, and whether it be an athletic team or a business team or, a medical team, whatever, to make them go, be concerned, and then say, and then you see everybody dial in and have this ridiculous, super focus, and everybody's got this common goal to go. And that was the point, right? That was the point, to bring everybody together.
Right.
And then, they take that, especially athletes. They're so used to, being rewarded for doing something right and being punished for something wrong. But I think everybody wants to be an athlete. I think everybody has an inner athlete, whether it's business or life or friendship, that
competitive mindset.
Yeah, everybody wants to feel that win. It feels good. It feels good to celebrate an accomplishment. It feels good to celebrate that.
Yeah.
So I think for me, like I said, it's like bring your best for me is my go. When that alarm goes off, it's either win the day, bring your best, enter a room and smile. It's everything.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times, like now I'm really trying to listen to, do a better job. And I was talking about this a few episodes ago of listening to the patients or sitting down, taking a seat next to them and asking them a question.
Level 5 listening, Rob Gill.
And it takes them back when you ask them like a powerful question.
Yeah.
And I love that connection. I think it's such a special gift that I'm so grateful for, that I can sit there and have somebody leave going, hey, you know what, Doc, thank you. The amount of hugs from that little practice over the last 6 weeks, it's like chicken soup for the soul.
Yeah.
It's like literally you're just feels good.
Absolutely.
It feels good to make someone else feel good.
Yeah.
And you're not doing it for any other reason other than to just be genuinely concerned and kind.
No, absolutely. I think you nailed it right there. Guys, all your listeners out here, this is a very powerful podcast because it really dives deep as far as starting from the bottom, ending at the top. And what would you say the biggest lesson learned from this podcast would ultimately be?
You know what? Today would definitely be one of the ones where I'd say it's like a self-help one that you want to share to people. And perspective is what you gain from being in the bottom, that dark place. And this is when you truly can figure out who you are, right? And what do I mean by that? Do you quit easy? Do you doubt yourself? are you not a big personality? Do you realize that people can tend to shut you down? And when you're making it, you say, you know what? I've had enough. I can do this. I'm coming. I want more.
Yeah.
And it's almost like your mind is a bully against yourself. And when you take that stand that you're like, and you literally are like, stop, I'm coming. That's where we're talking about the winning streaks, where you start going, okay, you know what? I started here and I've come so much further. Now I'm here. But now it becomes contagious, and now you're addicted to that. And I think that if you can practice gratitude and be grateful for the wins, and you can keep saying, hey, this is where I want to go, that's where you get to be that extraordinary person. And that's where sharing comes. That's when you want to share to other people and inspire other people to really just grow and show them, hey, listen, I was here.
Yeah.
For me, I was here. I was broken. I hear people talk about anxiety, depression, medication. I'm like, yeah, I can check all those boxes.
Yeah.
Right. And they're like, but you're so happy. I go, that's work. That's the consistency that this podcast started on, that like, you know, consistency is greatness,
It's
right?
the why.
And I don't care. I mean, greatness meaning getting yourself out of a hole, knowing you have a family, knowing you have friends, a patient, employees that are counting on you to go to work so they have a job.
Yeah.
And for me, that was such a powerful movement and shift in who I was, that I'm thankful to share that with other people. I mean, I don't know how many times, you know, I make it a point to be like, you know, guys, I was there. I know you don't realize that because you're seeing something that I'm showing you, but I think everybody has darkness in them.
Of course.
And I think that the better you get with sharing that and opening up and showing that vulnerability, that is probably one of the biggest leadership things that I could say, is like showing a vulnerable side to you when people see powerful or intimidating. I know in our new business, you know, I always hear these terms from one of our, you know, within the group, and I chuckle. I'm like, God, you know, I never want to be seen as like a bully or intimidator.
Yeah.
So I'm working so hard on that. But then I realize it might be something that's in the other person.
Yeah.
Right. And it's what they're perceiving.
Absolutely.
So, you know, and I always laugh. It made me think of a great piece out of one of Jocko Willink's books on leadership, and awesome speaker. And there was a kid, or not guy, it was a CEO in the company that was a huge guy, awesome voice. Everybody loved him. And Jocko Willink is a unit, right? But he was a little intimidated. He didn't even realize he was, right?
Yeah.
He wanted to posture, and he kept going at this guy when he realized the guy was a good dude. The insecurity was in him.
Yeah.
And then when he tabled that and he connected with that guy,
Right.
he realized, he's like, I'm just going to make this guy better.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think like these episodes and what we get to do are as much therapy for ourselves
As it is
as our
for all your
listeners. And that's why you want to get it out there. It's like, I don't know how many times where I felt myself getting into somebody, being Doc back in the day, where I was like, you know what? I look back at him like, guy was better.
Yeah.
And now I turn it as like, celebrate that. Hey man, you know what? When I walked away today, you made me want to walk away and work on my stuff to be better.
Right.
Thank you. Don't look at it as something that's taken away. Look at it as something you just lit my fire.
Yeah.
You know, right? And I want to be better.
Absolutely.
So that was good stuff right there, brother.
That was
That's
a
some
super
energy.
powerful message, and you know, it's always a pleasure. You know, this hit home for me too. Very, very powerful. And guys, tune in. I mean, you're really missing out, but it was an amazing podcast today.
Awesome. Good stuff. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us today on Tough Love. Follow us on our Instagram handle, which is Dr. John O'Connor. This podcast will be broadcasted on all of our platforms, so we're so looking forward to it. Our greatest gift you can give us, and we'd be so grateful, is to share this to as many people as you can, and get the message out there. We'll see you next week. Thank you so much.